Respecting your mother shouldn't have required me to starve, Thabo.
The empire Mpamha you keep talking about isn't being built for us. It's being drained.
Tradition is a bridge, not a barrier.
African Karma Stories.
The silence of a Sandton penthouse is heavy, expensive, and fragile. It is 3:12 in the morning. Outside the window, the glass towers of Johannesburg's financial heart are silhouettes against a purple-black sky. Inside, the only light is the steady, rhythmic pulse of a humidifier. Then, the chime happens. It isn't a loud sound, but in the dead of night, it feels like a gunshot. Lindiwe's phone vibrates on the nightstand, its screen cutting through the darkness like a blade. She doesn't want to look. At this hour, news is rarely good. She reaches out, her fingers brushing the cold glass, and the Face ID unlocks the screen. It's a bank alert, an ATM withdrawal of 5,000 rand. Success. Lindiwe blinks, the blue light stinging her eyes. She reads the location tag at the bottom of the message, Diepkloof, Soweto. She freezes. Diepkloof is 30 kilometers away. It is a world apart from this air-conditioned bedroom. Slowly, she turns her head. Her husband, Thabo, is lying right beside her. His chest rises and falls in the deep, heavy rhythm of someone who has been asleep for hours. He hasn't moved. He hasn't left the bed since they turned off the lights at 11. Lindiwe's heart begins to hammer against her ribs. She looks at the dresser across the room. Thabo's leather wallet is sitting right there next to his watch. Inside that wallet is the only card linked to their family savings account. Or at least, that is what she has been told for the last 3 years. If Thabo is here and his wallet is there, then who is standing at an ATM in the middle of the night, emptying their future into the palm of their hand? Lindiwe knows there is only one way to be sure. She slips out of bed, her feet hitting the cold floorboards, and moves toward the wallet. But as her hand reaches for the leather, she realizes that the answer might be more dangerous than the question. The blue light of the phone fades, but the image of the Diepkloof withdrawal is burned into Lindiwe's retinas. She stares at Thabo's sleeping form, and her mind drifts back to the day this track was set. It wasn't a dark alley or a forced signature. It was a sunny afternoon in a garden filled with the scent of slow-cooked lamb and expensive tea. It was the final day of lobola negotiations. The families had agreed on the price. The celebration was in full swing. But in a quiet corner of the veranda, Gogo Mudlamini had cornered them. She sat like a queen in her traditional wrap, her eyes sharp and assessing. "A marriage is not just two people," Gogo had said, her voice like smooth gravel. "It is two lineages joining. If you keep your money separate, you are keeping your hearts separate. You are being individualistic. That is the Western way, not our way." Lindiwe remembers the weight of those words. In the high-pressure world of Sandton marketing, she is a shark. But here, under the gaze of her future mother-in-law, she felt like a child. Gogo proposed a family trust. A single account where all their salaries would go, managed by her, to invest for their future empire and ensure the ancestors saw their unity. Thabo had looked at Lindiwe then, not with the confidence of the man who had proposed to her at a rooftop bar, but with the desperation of a son who spent his whole life trying to earn his mother's approval. He reached for Lindiwe's hand, his palms slightly damp. "It's for the best, Lindy," he whispered. "My mother knows how to grow money. She's kept the family together since my father died. It's about respect. It's about building a foundation that lasts." Lindiwe had hesitated. Every instinct in her professional brain screamed that this was a disaster. But she wanted to be the good wife. She wanted to belong to this family that seemed so rooted in history. She chose peace over her own autonomy. She chose the promise of a blessed future over the control of her own bank card. 3 years later, that foundation feels like quicksand. The empire they were building hasn't resulted in a new house or a shared investment. Instead, it has resulted in Lindiwe checking her banking app 3 times a day just to see if she can afford a cup of coffee. She looks back at the wallet on the dresser. The agreement was simple. Gogo manages the wealth, and they receive an allowance for their daily needs. But as Lindiwe watches the minutes tick by toward 4 in the morning, she realizes that while her allowance is shrinking, someone else's appetite is growing. The tradition she signed up for was supposed to be a shield. Now, it feels like the very thing being used to bleed her dry, and as the sun begins to peek over the Johannesburg skyline, she knows the peace she bought 3 years ago is about to expire. By midday, the Sandton sun is bouncing off the floor-to-ceiling glass of Lindiwe's office. To her colleagues, she is the image of success, a senior marketing executive in a tailored blazer, commanding a boardroom. But as the clock strikes 1, the physical reality of her life sets in. Her stomach growls, a sharp, twisting reminder that she skipped breakfast. She looks at her banking app. The balance is a mockery. Her monthly allowance from the family trust was cut by 40% this morning. No explanation, no warning, just a digital amputation. She remembers the conversation with Thabo from 2 nights ago. She had cornered him in the kitchen while he was pouring a glass of vintage red wine. When she asked why their personal budget was being choked, he didn't even look at her. He just stared at the wine swirling in the glass. "Mama says the markets are volatile, Lindy," he had said, his voice flat. "She's moving funds to safer investments. We have to sacrifice now to build the empire later. It's just a season." A season. Lindiwe looks down at her heels. The soles are wearing thin, the leather scuffed. She can't afford to replace them. She is a woman who manages multi-million rand brand budgets for other people, yet she is currently debating if she can afford a 12 rand pack of crackers from the vending machine. She pulls up her social media feed to distract herself, but the first post at the top of her screen is a jagged pill to swallow. It's Lorado, Thabo's younger sister. She is at a rooftop brunch in Cape Town, draped in a silk scarf that costs more than Lindiwe's monthly rent. The caption reads, "Blessings from the Queen Mother." Living my best life. Lindiwe stares at the screen until the image blurs. The empire Thabo keeps talking about isn't being built for them. It's being drained. The sacrifice is one-sided. The resentment she has been suppressing for years finally begins to boil. She realizes that as long as she remains a good wife who asks polite questions, she will continue to starve in a glass office. She closes her banking app and opens her contacts. She doesn't need a husband's permission to find the truth. She needs a specialist. She stops asking why the money is gone. She is about to find out exactly where it went. The heat on the M1 highway is a physical weight, pressing down on the sea of cars crawling toward the north. Lindiwe is gripped by a different kind of pressure. For the last 10 kilometers, her fuel light has been a glowing amber eye, mocking her. She knows exactly how many kilometers she has left, and she knows exactly why. She couldn't afford to fill the tank this morning. She had to choose between petrol and the data bundle she needs to keep her office emails syncing. She chose the data. Now the car begins to judder. The engine gives one final pathetic cough and dies. The power steering vanishes, the steering wheel becoming a heavy, stubborn thing in her hands. She manages to muscle the car onto the narrow, gravel-strewn shoulder of the highway, just as the air conditioning cuts out. Within seconds, the cabin begins to bake. Lindiwe sits in the sudden, ringing silence, watching the high-speed traffic roar past her just inches away. Her hands are shaking. She reaches into her glove compartment and pulls out a small, velvet-lined box. Inside is the emergency card. When they signed the papers 3 years ago, Gogo Madlamini had handed it to her with a saintly smile. "This is for your protection, my daughter. If you are ever in trouble, the family is here." Lindiwe walks 200 meters to the nearest petrol station, carrying a plastic jerrycan she borrowed from a passing motorist. She reaches the pump, her throat dry from the exhaust fumes and the heat. The attendant looks at her with a mix of pity and exhaustion. 20 liters, please, she says, her voice cracking. She swipes the emergency card. She waits for the familiar beep of a successful transaction. Instead, there is a long, agonizing silence from the machine. Then, a sharp, double beep. The attendant looks at the screen and then at her. He hands her a small slip of paper. Declined. Insufficient funds. Lindiwe stares at the word. Insufficient. It is a judgment. It is a lie. She knows that just 6 hours ago, Her own salary as senior executive's salary was deposited into the trust account. She knows that tens of thousands of rand should be sitting in that safety net. "Try it again," she whispers. "It must be the network." He tries again. The result is the same. Behind her, a taxi driver honks his horn, shouting for her to move out of the way. The sun is starting to dip, and the shadows on the highway are growing long and jagged. Lindiwe stands on the concrete, the heat of the ground rising through the thin soles of her scuffed heels. She isn't just stranded on a highway. She is stranded in a life where her own hard work is being used to lock her in a cage. The emergency card isn't a shield. It's a prop in a play she is tired of performing. She pulls out her phone. She doesn't call Thabo. She doesn't call Gogo. She calls Zanile. "I don't need a lift," Lindiwe says when her friend picks up. "I need you to open your laptop. I need to know whose name is on the secondary cards for our account. And Zanile, don't stop until you find the GPS tags on those withdrawals." The air in Gogo Madlamini's dining room is thick with the scent of slow-cooked oxtail and the heavy, sweet aroma of floor wax. This is the weekly family gathering, a ritual of unity that usually feels like a warm embrace. Tonight, for Lindiwe, it feels like an interrogation room. Lindy waits until the plates are cleared and the tea is poured. She waits for the moment when the laughter dies down before she speaks. Her voice is calm, but there is a tremor of iron beneath it. She tells them about the M1 highway. She tells them about the empty tank, the roaring traffic, and the word insufficient printed on a thermal slip. Thabo looks at his shoes. The rest of the cousins go silent. But Gogo Madlamini doesn't blink. She slowly sets her teacup down on the saucer with a deliberate, haunting click. "You speak of petrol," Gogo says, her voice dropping into a register of profound disappointment. "You speak of cards and machines while your husband's spirit is under attack. Do you have any idea what it takes to keep this family standing? Do you know the sacrifices I make in the dark so you can live in the light?" She leans forward, her eyes narrowing. She explains that the missing funds weren't missing at all. They were redirected to a series of urgent cleansing ceremonies. She claims Thabo's career was at risk due to jealousy from the village, and only a significant offering to the elders could clear the path. "I spend my Tuesdays in the women's prayer circle, interceding for you," Gogo continues, her voice rising with a practiced rhythmic authority. "And you come into my house to audit me like a tax collector? It is the Western education. It makes you sharp in the head but hollow in the heart. You have forgotten how to be a daughter of Africa." The table shifts. Lindiwe can feel the collective judgment of the room turning against her. Uncle Sifo sighs, looking at her with pity. The cousins whisper. In this room, Gogo's word is more than evidence, it is law. Lindiwe is being framed as the ungrateful, modernized wife who values a full tank of petrol over her husband's soul. Lindiwe opens her mouth to defend herself, but then her phone pulses in her lap. A notification light flashes. It's a social media alert. She glances down, hidden by the tablecloth. It's a photo posted 30 seconds ago by Lorato. Lorato is wrapped in a plush white robe at a 5-star spa in Sandton. She is holding a glass of imported champagne. The caption reads, "A little Tuesday afternoon, cleansing courtesy of the best mother in the world. Who needs a prayer circle when you have a platinum card?" Lindiwe looks up from the screen. She looks at Gogo, who is still wearing her mask of righteous suffering. The cleansing wasn't spiritual. It was a facial. And the prayer circle was a shopping spree. Lindiwe doesn't argue. She doesn't scream. She simply turns her phone face down and smiles. For the first time in 3 years, she isn't hurt. She is dangerous, because she finally knows that every word coming out of Gogo's mouth is a brick in a wall that is about to come crashing down. Zanile's apartment in Maboning is a stark contrast to the polished, artificial silence of Sandton. It smells of strong coffee, burnt toast, and the electric hum of overworked cooling fans. There are 3 monitors glowing on her desk, their light reflecting in her glasses as she types with a speed that sounds like rain on a tin roof. Lindiwe sits on the edge of a velvet chair, clutching a folder of printed SMS alerts. "Look at the timestamps, Lindy," Zanile says. Her voice is the clinical tone of a surgeon. She points to a spreadsheet. "Every Tuesday for the last 6 months, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:15, 2:30, while Gogo Medlamini is supposedly kneeling in a circle of women, asking for ancestral protection. A card is being slid into an ATM at a specific branch in Diatloof. Lindiwe looks at the data. It isn't just numbers. It's a heartbeat. The rhythmic pulse of a theft. It's always the same branch, Lindiwe whispers. The one near the old shopping center where she used to take Thabo when he was a boy. She says it's where the ancestors speak loudest. It gets worse, Zanali says. She taps a key and a new window opens. I ran a check on the device ID associated with these transactions. You said Thabo has the only card in his wallet, right? Lindiwe nods. He checked it this morning. It hasn't left his side. Zaniel turns one of the monitors toward Lindiwe. Then he's telling the truth. The physical card hasn't moved. But look at this. Someone didn't steal the card. They cloned it. And the digital twin of that card? It's registered as a secondary payment method on a mobile wallet. Lindiwe leans in, her breath hitching. Whose wallet is Zanili? Zanili pauses, a look of genuine sympathy softening her sharp features. The account is linked to a recovery phone number. It's a Dlamini family plan number. It ends in 84. Lindiwe feels the world tilt. 84. That is the number Gogo uses to send the morning scriptures. That is the number she uses to call Thabo and guilt him into working late. It is the number she used to call Lindiwe and welcome her into the family. It wasn't just a mother asking for help. It was a calculated technological hijacking. Gogo hadn't just taken their money. She had built a digital ghost that could rob them from the inside out, all while she sat in a prayer circle and played the victim. Lindiwe stands up. The cold adrenaline Zanili warned her about is here now, numbing the heartbreak and replacing it with a singular, sharp focus. Can you get me the CCTV logs for that branch? Lindiwe asks. For that neighborhood. Zanili smiles, but there is no warmth in it. The manager there owes my brother a very big favor. We won't just have numbers, Lindy. We're going to have faces. Lindiwe looks at the glow of the screen. The hunt is no longer about a missing allowance or a stalled car. It is about a woman who used her own children's future to buy a saint's robe. Let's go, Lindiwe says. I want to see her face when she pulls the trigger. The office of Mr. Mokohena is a small, soundproof island in the middle of a bustling Soweto bank branch. It smells of industrial carpet cleaner and old paper. Outside the glass, the queue for the teller stretches out the door. A line of people waiting for their hard-earned money. Inside, the silence is heavy. Mr. Mokuni is a man who speaks in the language of ledgers and liability. He looks at Lindiwe over the rim of his spectacles, his expression unreadable. He has the printout Zanili requested, but he is hesitant. He knows the weight of what is on the screen behind him. You are sure you want to see this, Mrs. Dlamini? He asks. His voice is soft, carrying a hint of professional pity. Lindiwe doesn't hesitate. I'm sure. He turns the monitor. The footage is grainy, washed in the flickering blue light of a security feed, but the date and timestamp are unmistakable. Tuesday, 2:17 p.m. The camera over the ATM outside the branch shows a silver car pulling into the frame. The door opens and a woman steps out. She isn't wearing the modest, somber clothing of a prayer circle. She is wearing a vibrant, expensive silk wrap. It is Gogo Medlamini. Lindiwe feels a coldness spread through her chest. On the screen, Gogo doesn't look like a grieving widow or a spiritual intercessor. She looks like a woman on a mission. She walks to the machine with a brisk, confident step. She doesn't fumble. She doesn't look around. She reaches into her handbag and pulls out a phone, not a card, but a phone, and taps it against the contactless reader. A second later, the passenger door of the car opens. Lorado steps out. She is laughing, her head thrown back, holding 3 oversized shopping bags from a high-end boutique in Sandton City. She leans against the car, checking her own reflection in the window while her mother waits for the machine to spit out the cash. The machine begins its rhythmic whirring. Gogo reaches into the dispenser and pulls out a thick stack of notes. She doesn't count them. She doesn't tuck them away with the care of someone managing a tight budget. She simply hands the stack to Lorado, who stuffs it into her designer handbag without a second thought. Gogo looks directly toward the camera for a split second before turning back to the car. There is no guilt in her eyes. There is only the calm, terrifying satisfaction of someone who believes they are entitled to everything they touch. Lindy watches the silver car pull away, leaving the frame empty. The cleansing ceremony was a transaction. The ancestral protection was a shopping spree. Every kilometer Lindiwe walked on the M1, every meal she skipped, and every scuff on her shoes was a payment toward Lorato's luxury. Mr. Sicklade. Mokonia clears his throat and slides a USB drive across the desk. I have the logs and the stills here. They are time-stamped and verified by our internal audit. Lindiwe takes the drive. It is small and light, but it feels like it weighs 100 kilograms. She doesn't thank him. She doesn't cry. The time for tears ended on the shoulder of the highway. She stands up, her blazer straight, her eyes fixed on the door. She isn't going back to Sandton. She isn't going to call Thabo and beg him to believe her. She is going to the one place where Gogo's authority cannot hide from the truth. She is going to Uncle Sifo's house, and she is bringing the receipts. The air in Uncle Sifo's lounge is cold. This is the place of final appeals, a room where the modern world usually stops at the doorstep. Uncle Sifo sits in his high-backed chair, his face a mask of granite. To his left, Gogo Madlamini sits with her arms folded, her posture radiating insulted dignity. Thabo is between them, looking like a man caught in a crossfire he finally understands. Lindiwe stands in the center of the room. She doesn't wait for a blessing to speak. She walks to the low coffee table and places a stack of high-resolution prints in the center of the family circle. The first image is the clearest, Gogo Madlamini, standing at the Soweto ATM, her face illuminated by the machine's cold, digital glow. "This is the prayer circle," Lindiwe says. Her voice is a flat, dead calm that cuts through the tension. She places the second photo down. Lorato is laughing, holding bags from boutiques where a single shirt costs more than Lindiwe's monthly grocery budget. "And this is the blessing for Thabo's career," Lindiwe adds. Gogo's face goes from insulted to ash in a heartbeat. Then the fire returns. She stands up, her finger trembling as she points at Lindiwe. "You bring witchcraft into this house? You spy on your elders? Sifo, are you going to let this girl disrespect the blood of this family with these doctored lies?" Gogo's voice rises into a screech, the familiar weapon of culture and respect being brandished like a sword. But for the first time, the blade doesn't cut. Uncle Sifo doesn't look at Gogo. He leans forward, picks up the photo of the ATM, and holds it under the lamp. He studies the date. He studies the time. He looks at the heavy stack of cash in Gogo's hand money that was supposed to be in his nephew's savings. "Enough," Sifo says. It is a small word, but it fills the room like thunder. Gogo freezes. The silence that follows is suffocating. Sifo turns his gaze to Thabo. He slides the photos across the table until they are touching Thabo's hands. "Look at your mother, Thabo," Sifo commands, "and then look at your wife's shoes." Thabo looks. He sees the timestamp. He sees the silk wrap his mother is wearing, the one she said was a gift from an old friend. He sees the betrayal documented in pixels and ink. He looks at Lindiwe, and for the first time in years, he doesn't see a westernized wife. He sees the woman who has been carrying his family on her back while his mother picked her pockets. Thabo doesn't say a word. He simply stands up and moves to the other side of the room, away from the high-backed chair, away from the mask of tradition. He stands next to Lindiwe. The verdict is written in the silence. But for this marriage, the real trial is just beginning. The drive back to Sandton is the loudest silence Lindiwe has ever experienced. The city lights of Johannesburg blur into long neon streaks against the windows of the car, but her focus is entirely on the man sitting in the passenger seat. Thabo is slumped, his head resting against the glass, his reflection superimposed over the glowing skyline he once thought they were building together. They enter their penthouse, but the luxury feels like a stage set for a play that is finally closed. Thabo doesn't go to the kitchen for his usual glass of wine. He sits on the edge of the sofa, his hands clasped between his knees. "I didn't want to see it, Lindy," he says. His voice is a hollow rasp, stripped of the defensive confidence he's worn for years. "Every time you complained, every time you showed me a balance, I told myself you were being difficult. I told myself that my mother was the anchor. If I admitted she was lying, it meant my whole life was built on a lie." Lindiwe stands by the window looking down at the streets she almost died on because of a dry fuel tank. She doesn't feel the rush of "I told you so." She only feels a profound, weary clarity. "Respecting your mother shouldn't have required me to starve, Thabo," she says, turning to face him. "Tradition is supposed to be a bridge that connects us to our ancestors, not a cage that locks us away from our own lives. You weren't being a good son, you were being an accomplice." Thabo looks up, his eyes rimmed with red. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out his phone. With a few trembling swipes, he logs into the Family Trust portal. He doesn't look at the balance this time. He looks at the Linked Users tab. "It's over," he whispers. He taps the screen, removing his mother's administrative access and freezing the secondary cards. It is a digital divorce from a toxic expectation. He looks at Lindiwe, and for the first time since their wedding day, she sees the partner she actually married. Not the child, but the man. "We start over tomorrow," Thabo says. "My salary, your salary, our name on the door, no ghosts in the middle." Lindiwe nods, but she knows that a clean break leaves scars. They have reclaimed their money, but they have yet to see what happens when the Queen Mother realizes her throne has been dismantled. As they sit in the quiet of their reclaimed home, Lindiwe's phone pulses one last time on the coffee table. It is 3 a.m, the time of the midnight chime. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The Sandton sun is no longer a blinding glare. It is a warm, golden wash over the apartment. The city below is humming with its usual chaotic energy, but inside, the air is still. Lindiwe is standing in the kitchen, pouring a glass of water, when her phone vibrates on the marble counter. For 3 years, that sound was a trigger for a Pavlovian tightening of her chest. It meant a withdrawal she hadn't authorized. It meant a message from a mother-in-law demanding more for a blessing. It meant the slow, steady leak of her own life force. She picks up the phone. The screen illuminates. It is a bank alert, but the location isn't a dark alley in Soweto, and the time isn't the dead of night. The message is a notification for a deposit. It is a transfer into a new, private account, an account that bears only 2 names, hers and Thabo's. Betrayal. He is sitting at the dining table, his laptop open. He isn't looking at family investments or village politics. He is looking at a spreadsheet for their actual future. He looks up, sees her phone in her hand, and gives her a small, tired, but honest nod. The silence of the penthouse is no longer heavy or fragile. It is solid. Lindiwe realizes then that the justice she sought wasn't about the rand or the luxury items Gogo and Lorado had paraded on social media. It was about the dignity of being seen as a partner, not a resource. It was about reclaiming the ground beneath her own feet. Tradition is a beautiful thing. It is a bridge built by the ancestors to help their children cross the rivers of life. But when someone tries to turn that bridge into a barrier or a cage, it is no longer tradition. It is theft. Lindiwe puts her phone back on the counter and takes a sip of water. The glass is full, the tank is full, and for the first time in her marriage, the future is hers to write. Tradition is a bridge, not a barrier. If your blessing requires your silence, it's time to speak up. Your legacy is built on the truth you have the courage to tell.